Hi, Sylvain. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. So we've had some fans write in with their questions on our Formula E Zone Discord and on Reddit. So I'm going to sort of start with just asking you a couple of questions from our end, then we'll move on to the fan questions if that all sounds good.
Sounds great.
Perfect. So I think the ideal place to start is kind of going way back. So let's start right at the beginning. What was it that made you want to get involved in Formula E? Was there anything that really stood out to you about the racing series, or what was like that main pull factor?
Great question. It could be a long answer, so I'll keep it short. Um, I guess I was one of the few people from the very beginning really interested or passionate even by racing, but also electric car technology. So you might know or not, but prior to Formula E, I had already created my startup uh, on electric racing called
Mhm.
EV Cup. So it was basically the precursor of Formula E. So I had basically already been working on electric racing for a few years on my own project, and then if I created Formula E, and it made complete sense to get involved. And then after a few discussions, getting involved with the team was just a super opportunity. So I didn't need any convincing. Quite the opposite. I was a very outspoken
Yeah.
ambassador for the series, and then being already very convinced myself of the potential of the technology. But 10 years ago, it sounds obvious now, but 10 years ago, it was not so obvious. Like could not really picture fast racing with electric cars.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great part of my life, actually.
Oh, brilliant. And sort of kind of thinking back, did you ever imagine that you'd be in this position now, that you would be the team principal of a racing team and a team that's won the championship, no less?
Yeah, well, you never know what's happening in life, right? Like when I started, so I used to work for the car industry, right? For Mercedes, BMW, Mercedes, and others. Then I worked in consulting in England. That was almost 20 years ago. Um, and uh, And yeah, you never know, right? As I said, I got this crazy idea for mixing EV tech and racing, and that was 2009 and 10 when we started the project, and then formally we got involved in 2013. So
Mm.
at that stage, I had no family, no kids. Like you can take risks and do whatever you're passionate about. So at the time, it's really the short answer is no. You have no idea where you're gonna end up.
Yeah.
But for sure, I found the project, the topic, and the people you meet along the way, and all the PR we generated at the time, and all of this really exciting. And then as soon as the momentum took off, which was almost instantly with Formula E, um, then there was never really no doubt in my mind that this would work one way or another, right? And then after that, frankly, you're just focused on the job. You have so much to do. The early years of Formula E, we were one of the teams that started from scratch. You have to remember, right? We were fighting against dams, like E-Dams, Abt, all these teams that were already racing in other categories. But
Mhm.
our team was brand new for Formula E, so we had to find, workshop, team, engineers, mechanics, all of this. We had to build from scratch. So there was no shortage of work at the beginning. So you're not really thinking, well, I'm going to be in 10 years' time. You're in full startup mode, make
Yeah.
it happen, and then see where you end up.
Absolutely. And I think that's quite interesting you mentioning kind of obviously you started from bare bones, right? So taking from that season one start to now, how has the series kind of evolved?
Hmm. A lot in the short answer, but yeah, as I said at the beginning, if you summarize, seems like ours who started from scratch as a blank sheet of paper. It was really hard work at the beginning to get things going, but then it also gave us an advantage because we were fully dedicated to Formula E when others were doing Formula E and other championships. So it was hard work and the teething issues of building a team. But on the flip side, we were working Monday to Friday and even the weekend on Formula E, so it gave us that focus. But
Mhm.
the sport has changed completely, right? Like the teams have more than doubled in size operationally. Obviously, the technology is night and day. Like season one, all the cars were identical, which is the only way you start a championship. Season two, Renault and ours and a few other, we were a bit crazy and built our own cars that were nothing like optimal, but that was a bigger upgrade on season one. And after that, the technology roadmap was so aggressive, and the cars made big steps every year. Season three and four, and then Gen two,
Mhm.
and then the story, So the sport now is completely unrecognizable. I mean, now many kind of independent observers, our partners and media and so on that come and spend the race weekend with us and so on. They cannot believe how sophisticated and how professional Formula E is. The amount and simply that's driven by the complexity of the technology. We don't have an IC engine, but we have two powertrains, a whole bunch of software, and a lot to do to make these cars, just to make these cars work, let alone be fast. You need a lot of engineers and mechanics to make that work. So, yeah, the sport has changed considerably, but for the better. I'm a big believer that the cars have to be exciting. They have to be as fast as we can make it, as we can make them. That's what really captures fans' imagination, right? They need to look at a Formula E car and think, "Wow, this is a monster of a car. This is super impressive." And you only get there with complex technology, right? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of leading on from that, where do you think the series might be in sort of 5 or 10 years' time? Where do you think it'll be and where would you love it to be?
Yeah, a good question. We spend a lot of time on that. And then I think there's two parts to the answer, right? You have the technology side, the roadmap, and then you have the sport itself. So on the technology side, well, you can see on the FIA website, the tender for the key parameters of the Gen 4 cars are already out. So you can see that, we're aiming a car that is significantly faster in Gen 4 than Gen 3, which again, we were in Madrid 2 weeks ago for a test, and the Gen 3 car on all-wheel drive is very impressive. It's very fast. That was on the pit wall, which I never get to do on race weekends. And the car's acceleration, the way they pick up speed is unbelievable, really. So, and they were reaching, 250 kph at the end of the straights, which was a short straight because we put a chicane in the middle, right? So the
Yeah,
way they pick up speed is super impressive. But Gen 4, we're aiming for, which is the car in 2 years' time, we're aiming for a bigger battery, more power, more of everything, more downforce, more grip, and that will generate a much, much faster car. So I've seen some simulation that's really exciting in terms of lap time and performance and so on, but it's a bit too early to say. So, but yeah, and then Gen 4 takes us 2026 to 2030, right? So that, we will have a car that is exactly what I want to see, which is very impressive, a monster of a car.
yeah,
People. I believe one of the reasons why people are so passionate about Formula One is not really just the racing itself. You can argue the racing is not the best out of all the racing out there, but if you look at a Formula One car, even static in a garage, it's really impressive. You know what this car can do.
absolutely.
Like
It's very
you know,
visually striking.
yeah, exactly. And the specs, you know that this thing is a beast, right? And I
Yeah,
think Formula needs to create the electric equivalent of that, like a very striking, very powerful car. So that's where the sports is going on the technical side. And then on the kind of media broadcast platform, it's quite simple. We have really, ambitious objectives to grow the sport significantly, because this is what's needed to fuel the system. Like we need the sport to grow significantly year on year. That translates into, more sponsorship revenues, more partners coming on board, more fans being involved, and it becomes a virtuous cycle. So I believe the product is great. The racing is fantastic. The cars are great. The teams, drivers, like we have all the ingredients. We need to work very closely with FEO, the promoter, to make sure that we ultimately double the size of the sport in the next 6, 8 years. And the more people, I really believe the more people get a chance to be exposed to Formula E, watch Formula E a lot, then a lot of people like it and will keep watching it. And it's a good format. Like the racing just under an hour and all this. There's a lot of good things about Formula E. So we need to make sure that people get the chance to see it, find it, see it, and then ultimately get hooked and keep watching. That's the aim of the sport. The size matters. We need a really large platform
mhm.
to make sure that we are reaching as many people as possible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, when you see the passion with among fans, there's no issue with the product. It's just you almost want to like take that passion, just like spread it wider, right? There's so much excitement, especially with Gen 4, when you see people discussing it, I think so much positivity about where the series is going to go, which is really nice to see. It must
Yeah.
be amazing for you guys as well.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a fine line for the FIA, for Formula E, and obviously we're involved as well. It's a fine line to keep developing that roadmap and keep developing these cars to make them faster and faster and more exciting. But also we need to keep a good racing product. The
Hmm.
racing needs to be exciting, right? And it's not from history. It's not easy to do. Like getting that fine line between the two. But we need, I think Formula has been brilliant at it for the last many years on getting that balance right, and we need to keep doing that. So I'm obviously very biased, but I really believe the product is great. We just need to show it to everybody, and then once the sport in itself grows, then we will be able to develop even more amazing technology and even quicker, and it becomes a real virtuous cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So just ask you a couple of questions about, what you think about the season ahead before we move on to the fan questions. So
Yeah,
how do you think the preseason testing went in Madrid for the team? What was the sort of feeling there?
yeah. For us, there was so there were a lot more variables than previous years. Is the short answer. So for us, we had a lot to do. So even though it's called Gen 3 Evo, Gen 3.5, it's actually really, it's a big Evo. It's more than an
Yeah.
evolution. So we have brand new tires that have a different characteristic, more grip. So we have to restart from scratch all the work on tires and tire modeling, which is tricky and takes a lot of testing. And of course, for Envision as a customer team, we get far fewer test days than the manufacturer team. So typically, tire modeling and things like this are a bit more tricky. Like we need testing for that. So for us, really, it was a huge learning curve because we have a new powertrain from Jaguar, which is great. A lot of excitement on the potential of that powertrain. But as always, when you have a new, brand new everything on a race car, there's a lot to figure out. So it reminded me a bit of season nine, better than season nine because we were more prepared, of course, but there's a lot to learn. So new tires, obviously the all-wheel drive system is a major change. It's like a new car, really. Normally you set up a car, a race car, a real-wheel drive car has a certain of being set up. An all-wheel drive car is usually completely different, even in the way it's designed. The way distribution, the balance of the car, all of this will be completely different. Here we are trying to do both. We are trying to have a race car that is both rear-wheel drive and needs to be really good and drivable on rear-wheel drive for
Yeah.
quality in the race, but we also need a car that is really drivable and really efficient on all-wheel drive to make the most of attack mode and the duels and so on. And that's I can't imagine that's been done many times in motorsport, to be honest, to have a car that's both, it's usually one or the other. Um, so that's a huge challenge. First mechanically, and secondly, on the software control side, you hear a lot of that in Formula E, but getting these two powertrains to work in tandem and in harmony, both on regen, but now on traction as well, is huge. If you start using the front powertrain on traction, all your balance setup, all this goes out of the window. You have to rewrite everything. So short answer, a huge amount of work to do, like one of the busiest test week we've ever had because
Yeah.
of the sheer volume of new things involved. But we had a really great week, a lot of mileage, no significant reliability issues. So yeah, we've ticked a lot of items, and but it's the beginning. So I think what you will see is the first few races of the season. You'll see a bit of mix and match because teams like ours will still be figuring out like how we extract the most of that car. Like in season nine, we started on the back foot,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then 3, 4 races in, we were flying and we were the fastest.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for the same in
Fingers
season.
crossed.
Yeah, in season 11. I'm hoping for I expect the beginning might be a bit all over the place, but quite quickly we'll have figured out how to extract the performance, and then hopefully a really competitive season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, I know the fans want to see it. There's some big Envision fans in our Discord, and they're just fingers crossed, looking forward to the new season. Um,
Yeah.
so what did you make of the pit boost race in Madrid? What were your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, you have to remember the objectives really. Well, it was a race, but it was not really a race, right? Like you're trying not to crash
Hmm.
on the in testing, right? So,
Yeah,
so, but it was really useful, a lot really for the FIA also and the broadcast and all these people to figure out the dynamic of a race, right? So for us, it was mostly like a procedure check, right? Making sure we haven't done pit stops in a few years, so making sure that we are sleek on the pit stop procedures. That's new order to people, and then of course the boost chart itself, like the make sure everything's working. So from our side, it was actually pretty good, pretty seamless with no big issue. Everything worked well. Um, so that's the first step. But of course, there's a whole other angle, which is the strategy of it, right? Like when to pit and when to use that,
Yeah.
and we'll have to. So yeah, we haven't done it for what, 6 years. So so we need to kind of regain the rhythm of all the simulation and all the work that goes around the pit stop. And it's basically when we do our race prep week at Silverstone the week before race, basically.
Yeah.
Um, that's now adding a whole new level of preparation needed, which is all the simulation around all different scenarios on pit stop, depending on the track layout, how many laps, and depending on so many factors. There are also some technical regulations around the charger and battery that we need to comply with. So yeah, it's a whole new dimension compared to last year. We still have all the car complexity, plus a lot more complexity on all-wheel drive, plus now the complexity of the pit stop as well. So there's
Yeah.
a lot going on in the Formula E race this coming season. So yeah, it went well. Now we are waiting for the final kind of validation and findings from the FIA on what's going to happen.
Yeah. And how important do you think it is for Formula E that we kind of get this technology right? And what do you think the real world implications of it are?
Well, I like the messaging. I mean, as you know, like again, Formula E's big picture, Formula is set up to do two things, right? And that's within it. First one is develop amazing tech, which we are. Like the technology in these cars is much, much greater than even the best electric road cars, which is how it should be, more efficient, lighter, and all these things. Um, so we need to develop great technology, and obviously we need to broadcast it to as many people as possible to have a large impact. Um, but back on the technology, we know what technology needs to be developed, right? The powertrains are getting so good, so efficient that soon we're going to get into diminishing returns on efficiency, right? Once we get to 95, 96% full system efficiency, it's going to get very, very marginal improvement from now on, which is still exciting, but it's already so good, so that makes sense. Battery energy density, battery power density, these things can only need to get better all the time. So
Yeah.
or given the amount of volume and weight, store more energy and being able to discharge it faster is really what will help adoption of electric cars, right? Like go further on a charge on range for a given volume and weight is really important. And then of course the other element is fast charging. Once we have reliable fast charging everywhere where we live, then we don't need really big batteries in our cars anymore. We don't need to keep increasing battery size and weight and cost ultimately to cars. We will be able to find a sweet spot of battery capacity that is plenty enough for all the 95% of trips that we do. And then for the occasional long trip, we will know it's really important to know that you have a reliable charging system along motorways. So on charging, then it's like on power and everything else, the more the better. So at the moment, in the UK, but you can, if you have a Tesla or many others, you can charge at 150, 200 kilowatt very reliably. I do it a lot. The best standard at the moment is about 350 kilowatts. That's the what a Porsche Taycan, and a few cars can accept that on some specific 350 kilowatt chargers. But that's on a very small part of the SoC range, and then it tapers down. So you're looking at between 100, 300. That's kind of the best kind of state of the art at the moment. And the technology that we are testing is 600, so double the absolute current best.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting because in 30 seconds we're able to add 10% of charge to the battery, which is unbelievable. So the whole point again of motorsport, trial that technology, make it safe and reliable over time. And then when it is, it trickles down to motorways. And if that means that in the future all the chargers on the motorways are 300 plus, 400 kilowatts, that means for most people it's a 10-15 minute stop to charge,
Yeah.
which is pretty transparent. I mean, already find that 20 minutes, it's almost too quick because when you stop, by the time you go get a coffee and something to eat or whatever, usually the car is ready before you are. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like ultimately, fast charging, reliable, safe, very fast charging in combination with um, range and so on is really what will trigger this mass adoption of electric cars. So Formula is staying true to its DNA, which is develop technology that's relevant to road cars, and that's the next big topic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting insights. Thank you, Sylvan. So I'm just going to move on to some of the fan questions now. And
Sure.
I'm going to start with a question from Nikki. So Nikki would like to know, how did you feel when Envision won the team championship in 2023?
Oh. Um, all sort of emotions. Because you have to remember, like, it was on such a knife edge, right? Like, it came down to the final lap of the
Yeah,
final race, right? Of what had been a really competitive season, right? We had obviously an amazing season, but so did others. So until the last few seconds, generally, like you don't see that very often in sports. We didn't know whether we win
hmm
it or not, you know. So yeah, it's hard to describe, but obviously, once you cross the line and we know we've done it, by a few points, it's hard to describe really because for me, I think I said in interviews at the time, I said, look, I've waited 9 years for this. We started the team. It was a winning in Formula E is not easy. Like you're fighting a lot of amazing teams and manufacturers and amazing, very clever people and drivers. So it's one of the hardest. And if you ask anyone, drivers teams, they'll tell you the same thing. It's one of the hardest championship to win. So when you win it, it feels so special because it's no one's given it to you. So yeah, I have an amazing feeling of you can't really describe of pure happiness and but really mostly for me being involved from the beginning and kind of having built this team over many years. It was mostly actually many things, mostly pride as well. Like ultimately,
yeah,
I had Leon and Mike and all my team around me that's been with me for years. And drivers obviously, and then like all these people that have around me for years and years and years and years. It really felt like this amazing team result, right? Like
yeah,
where all of us, some of the mechanics engineers have been in the team for 7, 8, 9 years or so. And then like, so to win it felt really amazing for them because, like it's a definition of a team effort. So yeah, pretty amazing. And then the rest is a bit of a blur, to be honest. Like,
I bet.
them celebrate. Obviously, we are based in the UK, so we had all our families and friends there. So we were hundreds of us
Yeah,
celebrating by the podium. I had my family, my two young daughters on the podium with me after all with my wife, and it's just pretty amazing moments. Really, you can't really nothing else gives you that than sport, really.
yeah,
So amazing moments, and then frankly, it gets really busy, right? Because despite having won the championship, the engineer drivers still want to have a debrief and still want to talk about things. And then obviously I had a lot of PR to do and engagement and so on. So all of it is it's a bit of a blur, but yeah, amazing feeling. And then that's what sport does to you. It's a bit of a good drug, right? Like you want to experience it again. So that's what keeps you going, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. So we've got a question here from Natalie. She said, "Oh, we kind of covered this, but another reason, like another thing that you think maybe has changed in the series, what perhaps with the fan side, what do you think sort of changed there?"
Do you mean over the 10 years, over the
Yeah, sort of from season one to now, how do you feel the team's engagement with fans has changed?
um Yeah, good question. Well, we do try. Obviously, it's an easy one in a way that we always try to do better and be more creative and engage fans and people the best way we can, right? So obviously you have the race team, race activations, people on site and so on, but we try to also do a lot as much as we can for those who can't be there at races. So, you might have seen all our sustainable chain activations and like we're trying to do a lot on the sustainability side because ultimately we don't sell cars, right? At Envision, like we do everything else: the renewable energy, the batteries, charging, all of it. We do everything but the car. So the purpose of the race team really is to inspire people to realize that electric mobility powered by renewable energy is really cool and it's a future that's going to be great. So we try to use the platform of the racing team to, of course, the racing is the exciting bit, it's the platform, it's the thing that engages everyone, but it's a great opportunity to talk about the bigger picture, right? So we try to do all of that through we do a lot of side events at races, we do some online events, we try to do a lot of things as much as we can. You can always do more, right? It's a resource, we are resource limited like any other business, but we try to engage fans in the best way we can, and I really love the sustainable pledge that we launched a few years ago, where fans pledge to do one or the choice of many things they can do to try to help the environment, and that creates such a great community, right? Like which I really love. So, and we have this great, again, I'm a bit biased, but we are one of the founding teams. We'll be there from the beginning. It's the same people. And it's like, we want to be one of the absolute pillars of Formula E, right? So sometimes you
Yeah.
see some manufacturers coming and going, but if we do a good job, teams tend to stay and, and become a key pillar of a championship. And that's what we are trying to be in Formula E. So yeah, and then usually, hopefully, it resonates quite well with fans because we have a very steady, you know, undiluted messaging. Like we try to be
Yeah.
very clear on what we stand for and what our values are, and stick by them. And then hopefully that people can see that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the aim.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. I like that idea of kind of committing to your values. I think that resonates a lot with different fans. We've got a question here from Blake, and he said, "What's it like being the director for Envision, and what complexities does the job come with?"
Hmm. Um, well, I think first it's obviously very exciting. That's why, the hard work, it's obviously very hard work, like any jobs in motorsport, but it's also really exciting. The complexity comes from just how diverse the job is. Like, so,
Yes.
and that's what I really enjoy. But it takes time to build the experience on all these things. So on any given week, all year, and actually people think off season is time to rest. But actually, for me, off season is usually even busier than race season. Because in the off season, you have the new partners, you have driver contracts sometimes, you have you put all the elements in place for the next season and onwards. But in any given week, whether it's race week or not, or just at home, personally, I'll be working on every single aspect of the business. So there's the racing side, obviously, the engineering, understanding what's happening there, like what's the latest ideas and what we're doing on the sim and so on, drivers. But you have the commercial side, partners, new partners, existing partners. You have the marketing side. What are we doing that's exciting and fun for next year, and all that part of things. And then you have all the management of the business, like any other business, finance, legal, uh, all these aspects. In my position, you have to really be pretty good at all of them. You have to really understand. You have to be quite happy to talk about profit and loss accounts at 10 a.m. and driver something at 11 a.m. and a marketing plan at 2 p.m. and then cost
Mhm.
cap at 3 p.m. And cost cap is the latest, financial regulations, the latest thing that's come our way from the FIA,
Yeah,
which is great. But that's also added another whole layer of financial expertise needed.
absolutely.
And it's really technical to be really good at cost cap. It's very, very technical finance work. So that's the best way to describe the job. Like it's super exciting, and obviously on a race week and at the track, it's a very visible part of the team where you're basically representing the team. But in the background, it's like just running a quite complex business with a lot of a lot of aspects to it.
Yeah.
Because you get some businesses are profit and loss. I make something and I sell something and I hope I make a profit. Here you get obviously all the elite sports aspect of it, the psychology of the team. You have the driver, athlete management aspect of it. You have just so many factors, which are, again, really great and really exciting and really, really fun. But you have to have some passion for it. Otherwise, it's probably a bit too much.
Yeah, I bet. So I think we've got time for just one more quick question. So this is from Jody, and Jody's asked, if you could bring back one track that Formula E no longer races at, which track would you pick?
There's just so many, and yeah, must be like there's just so many that will blur into each other. There's so many memories. Sometimes, yeah, same question as which were the favorite ones, and you tend to my best memories are basically the tracks we won at, obviously, but that's also because they are the ones you remember the most, right? So you
Yeah.
have the tracks in terms of layout, like which ones are like super fun. So for example, Buenos Aires comes to mind in season two. How many
Hmm.
times did you go there? Season two, definitely. I remember when we won there. And then that was an amazing, super fast track at the time, really long straight, cars going over 200 kph in the second year. I mean, now the cars now on that track would be just incredible.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing city track with really long straights. But obviously the Paris track was unbelievable. Like we were literally racing around the Valley, do the Eiffel Tower in the background and the river. It was just the most amazing location. But now
Yeah.
the track was already too small for the cars at the time. Like it just wouldn't work now. But I wish basically for the future of Formula E, back to the kind of growth of the championship we talked about earlier. I really hope that we can find some great city tracks like the one in Paris, but suitable to the performance of our new car. And it's obviously very difficult for Formula E and FIA because you have all the safety standards rightfully. So when the cars are going, almost 300 kph and so much grip and so on, you need much wider tracks, much more runoff, and so they are not easy to do. But yeah, some of these tracks, New York, obviously, we had the most amazing track record in New York, right? We won both races on the first doubleheader, and I think last time I checked, I might be wrong, but I think we won as a team, we won half of all the New York races that have
Oh my
happened.
goodness.
We have the most amazing track record there. And then the atmosphere there, being on Brooklyn, the Manhattan in the background, like we've just been blessed for me by so many amazing locations, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what ultimately fuels the growth of the sport. So in the future, we have to find this balance of going to tracks that are really fast, and you could argue as the cars get a lot faster, the racing you need more space. Like the racing is better if you have more space.
Yeah.
If the track is too small, the cars are fast, you kind of trip on each other really. So we need these kind of fast tracks, but also we need these iconic city center races, right? And London, again, London, it's a bit like our Monaco in F1, right? Monaco, of course, we love because the Monaco F1 track is actually ideal for Formula E. It's great. It's a super smooth tarmac by our standard. It's just the right size. We can overtake. It's super exciting. So we all love
Yeah.
Monaco. It's obviously fantastic to be there. The infrastructure is great. But then you look at London in Excel, that's our Monaco in a way, right? It's really narrow and it's difficult to overtake, and qualifying is super important. But then, being in London is amazing, right? So
Such good atmosphere there.
yeah, it's a great event. So there are just so many. You just yeah, they're all there. But yeah, Buenos Aires from the past. Hong Kong was incredible. Racing around the harbor was just unbelievable, really. Yeah, so many to mention, really. But
Yeah, like you said, like Formula E is just blessed with so many amazing locations, and I think that's what makes the series, so special. But thank you so
yeah,
much for your time, Sylvan, for answering my questions and for answering the fans' questions. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. So thank you very much, and all the best of luck for the next season.
thank you so much. My pleasure, and chat to you all soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.